The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 25. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of real women producing extraordinary results by finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Get your free audiobook at our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a special guest. I've actually met this woman in a couple of live events that we actually go to together, and, she is a woman on fire. That's all I have to say. She was recently on stage sharing her stories because, she believes in her own success, and, I'm not sure where she resides actually, but she is an internet entrepreneur, and her name is Vanessa Hines. And Vanessa, maybe you can fill in the blanks to the listeners a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Sheena, for having me. I'm extremely excited. I'm extremely excited about what you're doing with this podcast and for women around the world. And so, kudos to you for putting it together. This is awesome.
Thanks.
Sure. So, to answer the question, I live in Atlanta now, actually, but I grew up in Seattle, actually. So, I'm a long way from home here in the U.S. Grew up in Seattle. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, kind of just going way back. And, so you can understand why maybe I've had some issues with self-confidence. It all ties in. So I grew up to the eldest of 6 kids to a single parent, basically. I grew up Section 8 welfare, which here in the States is like low-income housing, essentially, like food stamps. It's government assistance, basically. Grew up in an area in Seattle that's, there's several, I guess, in any big city. But, I grew up in an area that wasn't necessarily even middle class. So it was like a lower class, maybe low to mid class area, and I'm mixed. So, racially, like my mom's Italian, my dad's Black. And so I grew up with all of these issues kind of surrounding, poverty and being teased for that, and then being teased for being mixed. And, I, at a young age, basically just like my confidence was shot because of things I really couldn't control, and at a young age, I put on like a tough exterior in terms of trying to hold it all together, and I'm a tough girl, and like nothing, phases me and fades me. But, inside it was really like hard. I was like actually, pretty distraught. I didn't have a lot of confidence whatsoever at all. And as I got older and, kind of didn't deal with that or didn't necessarily know how to deal with that yet, it basically turned into decisions, in terms of relationships and, even like drugs and alcohol, smoking weed, things like that, I really just I'm not proud of per se, but it's, it is what it is. It's the decisions I made. And I believe the root of it all comes from really a lack of self-confidence from when I was young.
Wow. I've never even heard your story ever. And I didn't know you came from all that. So that's, thanks for sharing that. Because sometimes we just need to hear that, we all have different stories, we all come from different backgrounds. And just because your circumstances back then weren't the greatest, it never defines who you are today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really haven't shared a lot of, and that's like the tip of the iceberg, but I haven't really shared my full story publicly. It really actually doesn't ever come up. And so I'm glad to be here to be able to, I'm sure that there's someone out there who can relate, and maybe someone who is, hasn't shared their story and hopefully has the courage to do so now as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the reason why I even started this podcast. I just want women to realize, you're not alone. So
yeah, most definitely.
So Vanessa, what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
Well, one thing, my mom is great, by the way. So, I know that a lot of people I grew up with, and I was surrounded by, some of them had parents on drugs or parents who had taken off. I mean, obviously my dad, that was him in this scenario, but even the remaining parent in some of my friends' households, pretty jacked up. But my mom actually was really great, just loving. She just had a little bit more than she could, manage financially, but part of that was because she made decisions to be a mom who was actually there in the household for her kids, who was really hands-on and loving. And she gave me a plaque when I was young that had like a kitty cat on it, I remember. And I think it was like 5, 6, 7. I mean, it was really young, but I had it like, I probably have it in a box still, actually. And the quote was, "If you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way." Literally, it was like 3, maybe 4 years ago, I actually found out it didn't have like who that quote was written by, but I ran into it again, and it's actually Napoleon Hill. And so even at a young age, even in that, environment, which a lot of the self-confidence issues and things were coming from external, outside of the household. Inside was a loving, safe environment. And, even at a young age, my mom had given me, that quote, if I cannot do great things, do small things, or if you cannot do, I guess, see, I always said it to myself. So do small things in a great way. And it always made me think that regardless of how, big something seems and how just impossible it seems to accomplish or to make happen, if I just take one step, if I make an incremental, decision and step towards it, then I can still do that in a great way. I can still do what I have access to and what I can, manage and, what I've been gifted with, I can still do that great, even if it isn't, as big as somebody else or, as great as somebody else. I just started to look within even at a young age. And so that one has been with me and I still live by it.
I love that quote too. And I think we forget sometimes that we need to celebrate all the little things in life to attract the bigger things. So, I mean, it's really important to realize that because some people, they get so beat up when they have just like a very small result. And instead of, celebrating it, they just think, oh, it's not that great. But it is, right? Because it's a stepping stone to your success, right? If you can't, bring in celebrate the little things, how can you expect to celebrate the bigger things in life? So, that's a great quote that you shared too. What would be your definition of self-confidence?
I always think about it like knowing yourself well, but loving yourself regardless. So, it's like there's an aspect of self-awareness, right? In order to be self-confident, you have to kind of be aware of your emotions, your feelings, like women, especially. We're, emotional creatures, as they say. And I think it's just that we actually admit we have them, unlike men sometimes, but it's like knowing your emotions, knowing where you're at in any moment to me, but still loving yourself because maybe you just did something that was just horrible or you said something or you look horrible even, but you still love yourself and you press on or what have you. So being aware of yourself, I think, first of all, and then, being okay with that, regardless, it would be my definition for sure.
Yeah, it's really important, especially as women too. We have to learn how to accept ourselves for who we are because I think we beat ourselves down to the point where it's like, we get tired, we get drained out. So it's really important to just accept who we are, regardless of what happens. And we have to love ourselves in order to, receive love from others. So what was your life like before the discovery? I know you mentioned some other stuff beforehand, but was there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I did mention like some of it and kind of the decisions I made, just kind of young and dumb. I mean, I cared a lot about what like other people thought of me, and like I said, I had that tough exterior, but I was just, really like, it was like, I was really fragile actually. So if somebody like said something offensive to me, and I had that too. It was like everything was offensive. I was extremely sensitive, but my response was always kind of that, it was a defensive response. But, when I was young, I thought that was the way to, handle it. Like you can't treat me like that. That was like my process, kind of the teenage years of taking my power back from, when I was young and kind of got teased. And I actually didn't get teased and wasn't bullied because I actually used to fight a lot because of what was happening when I was young. And not to say I always won or anything. I was like the kid that nobody wanted to mess with, but I just had like anger issues, and they manifested into really, just like to me, just a destructive lifestyle because you're trying to keep up this facade and literally inside you're not doing well, but you don't want anyone to know that because you care so much about what other people think of you. And so, it was tough. It wasn't I don't think that was an easy phase to be in at all.
Wow. I know sometimes we put up the tough girl face, right? Thinking,
Yeah.
We can take anything, don't worry about it, and not realizing inside we're really just hurting and we're really beat down. So, I'm glad you shared that because I'm sure there's women out there who may be still going through that, right? That tough girl phase, that little defense mechanism to just shut the world away from everyone. So I really appreciate that. And what was like your aha moment knowing that, you can start believing in yourself, you can change your circumstances at any moment?
No, that's a good one. I didn't have that moment. I know some people know like exactly when something changed and turned in their lives and they can go back to that moment and see it vividly. for me, it was, in my teenage years when I was going through all of that, I never felt good about it. I never felt like it was me. I never felt like I was myself. I just felt like, again, I was living this kind of facade. And so what I realized when I was actually probably, I guess, when my friends that I grew up with, actually, they tell me that I started talking about it even in middle school and things, and I didn't remember, but I basically was like, I don't care, that I don't know anyone who in my family, or I don't know anyone around me who has gone to college. I'm getting out of here. I knew that I needed to change my environment in order to change who I was, because my environment is kind of what kind of created this monster, so to speak. So, even though I didn't have an aha moment, I made a decision, at a young age to remove myself from the environment. The best way I knew how was to go to college. And so that's how I ended up in Atlanta now, even though I've kind of been all over the place since then. But I did. I went away to college, back then. And for me, it was the best thing because I was in a completely new city. I'd never been to Atlanta. I'd never really been too far away from home. And, just built up the confidence to actually want something new for myself in my life and want to change. And literally, made the trek across the country. And because Atlanta is so different than Seattle, Seattle's real diverse. It's different weather. It's just a completely different culture than Atlanta's the South. It's hot usually. Summers, when I got here, it was like I was dying basically. But, they're real friendly everywhere you go here too. It's like, how you doing? Hey y'all, everywhere. Where in Seattle, it's rainy and people drink coffee and smoke weed all the time. So they're just kind of in their own world, it was a completely different environment. And that was the best thing for me. That was the change that I needed in order to actually start to build my confidence and be on my own and literally be in a new place that was just so unfamiliar to me. I had a clean slate of being myself finally, like not having to put up that tough exterior. No one knew me. No one knew my past. No one knew that I grew up, any kind of way. And so that helped a lot.
I love that. Some people always go back to their past thinking that they can't change who they are because of who their past was. And you just decided, I'm just going to do it. Nobody knows who I am. I can start over whenever I want to. And you just took action on it. And most people have to, overcomplicate everything or overthink it, thinking, well, what if they find out I did this, or what if they find out I did that? Like, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it happened in the past, and you can always correct the mistakes you made and just move on to the future. So thank you for sharing that. And what's your life like right now, after doing that big change, moving to Atlanta to go to college?
Well, so I'm like in my mid-30s now, so it's been a while. And so, I mean, it's a journey, basically. It's not a destination, I would say. I basically still went through things. As I got out in like the real world, quote unquote, I studied business in school, so I went into corporate America. And I still kind of held some of that past, like not wanting people to know what kind of environment I came out of. I didn't want to be judged because of that in corporate. I wanted to climb. I had like really high ambitions of what I was going to accomplish in corporate America. And I didn't want that to be a ding or a knock against me. And so I actually, still went into a new environment again, and literally wasn't quite prepared for that and what that brought on. And so I'd say it's been a process really. And, it's basically, it's not, no day is perfect, but what has happened over time, I just continued to work on myself, continued to grow. And again, I had to remove myself from that environment even. So college obviously comes and goes. And, when I was out in corporate, because of that, because of the cutthroat nature of corporate America, and, especially as a woman and a woman of color in corporate America, basically it was literally day in and day out, me always fighting for, to prove that I actually just had even good intentions, that I wasn't after somebody else's job. I was trying to just do my job. I was always seen as a threat and things, and, by people who are mediocre, and you have you're just really driven. And because of that, to me, I had to get out of that environment at some point. It became a toxic environment, and I got tired of trying to, live a lie, essentially. I call it selling my soul for $1. At some point, I felt like I was just like, this is not, I know I studied to do this. I know. And then I went back to school even thinking it would help. If I get paid more, maybe it will help deal with this crap, right? And so I went back and I got my MBA. And a few years after that, I was like at a high level. I hit my kind of goal. It was 6 figures by 30. Coming from where I came from and what I described to you, I'm sure you could see like, okay, I was kind of like, I'm okay with where, having accomplished that. But, I didn't have a family or anything at the time. So for me, it was really like, now is my time to actually do it for myself, really branch out. And that's how I became an internet entrepreneur. It was making a decision again to finally kind of go for it and really invest in myself and stop letting my happiness be in the hands of other people. And so it's definitely been a journey. There's still days I throw something on and I don't necessarily feel great about what I have on. And so I change. And like, most women, I think, I mean, I'm not going to say it's just ever perfect. It's just happier. It's happier because, you choose to be grateful. You're looking at the future with, positive expectancy. You're more confident about tomorrow as you start making decisions that are, for you, where you start voting for yourself, even if no one else does.
Thank you for sharing that. And, it is true, being a woman in corporate America, or just being in the corporate space, it's not always fun, right? You got to work twice as hard to prove to the people that you can do it, even though it doesn't make any sense because we're all the same people. But, just being a woman, being in an office, especially surrounded by men, it's not fun. Right? I mean, I went through the same thing. I had to work my ass off just to show them that I can do this, right? And people can take me seriously. And sometimes, it takes a toll on you too, right? Because you're working so hard, you're busting your butt, and then you're not even getting paid as much as most of the men in corporate America for the same job. So
yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad you pointed that out. And, I just have a couple more questions to the woman who's listening to this episode, right? She's listening to your story and she's in her own journey of self-confidence. What is that one tip you would give to her?
Like if you have any area of weakness, of insecurity, of, past shame, you don't have to stay there. Like you mentioned, Sheena, like that doesn't mean that, your past self has to always be your future self or your current self even. So, I think that any moment you can turn it around. You just have to work at it and be willing to. And that's, I think, why it's important to be self-aware, and kind of pay attention to yourself. How are you feeling right now? Is this how you want to be feeling? And if not, what can you do to feel better? Just continue at, working at yourself. I mean, some people call it personal development. For some people, it's faith and, many of things. Whatever it is that, it takes for you to, to be a better person, then just work at it. There's always going to be someone smarter, someone, with more money, someone with more experience. But what they can't take away from you is, the work that you're willing to put in. And a lot of times when you are willing to outwork somebody in any area, you'll always succeed. It might not be the best of the best of the best at any given time, but it doesn't matter. Success is different things to different people. So I would just say, just be willing to work at it, never give up, and you'll always make progress.
Thanks for sharing that. That's great advice. And to the listeners out there, don't worry about what happened in the past. Just keep moving on, right? And I always believe action always trumps talent and skill, right? If you're willing to, go the extra mile to learn a certain skill, just go ahead and do it. I mean, everyone makes mistakes. I still make mistakes till this day, If you ever see some of my articles, I have spelling mistakes and grammar, but it never stops me from, inspiring women out there to live a life that they can, to live life out loud. So, follow the advice that Vanessa gave you. And Vanessa, if the listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about what you do and your work, where can they contact you? Where can they connect with you?
Our company site is probably the best place, and there's actually some info there if somebody's interested in learning how to build their offer online, because that was one area I lacked confidence in a few years ago. But you just surround yourself by people who know more than you and soak it up. So it's ypreneur.com, and that's YPRENEUR.com. That's actually my husband and I, our company, and there's some free tips on how to attract, engage, and convert online. So check it out, and feel free to leave comments, or there's ways to contact us on there on social and blogs and what have you. So feel free to connect anytime, and just get out here in this world and rock it out, because you got this.
Thank you so much. So to the listeners out there, head over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Vanessa's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I just want to thank Vanessa for taking the time to share her journey. I mean, your story is pretty inspiring, especially from where you came from, because, this is the first time I've actually ever heard your story, all that struggle, and now you're here running a successful internet business, helping others do the same thing. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sheena. And I, again, just appreciate what you're doing for women around the world. Make sure that you keep tuning into all of Sheena's podcast. I know I'm gonna. So talk to you later.
Awesome. Listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode, and we'll catch you later. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us at the Tao of Self-Confidence. Head over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com for full recaps of every show, our amazing blog articles and resources, and just plain fun. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits, so start today.